like we're going on YouTube. It's okay to read the meeting intro there, Stuart.
Go ahead.
The format of this meeting consists of board members, applicants, and city staff attending a live online Zoom meeting and the public viewing the meeting on the city's YouTube channel. For applicants, please only speak when the chair indicates it's time to do so. In addition, as usual, prior to addressing the board, please state your name, address, and affirm to tell the truth. Public viewers on YouTube have the ability to type in comments with a Google account. If you enter in a comment on YouTube, please first indicate your name and address. Comments can be entered at any time, but will relate to the board when the chair indicates that it's time to do so during the public hearing. Please also note multiple comments can be entered, but each comment is limited to 200 characters. If you're having difficulties commenting, please email me at a.dutton@worcesteroh.com. Finally, please be aware there's an approximate 15-second delay between the Zoom meeting and a live stream on YouTube. That's all I have for now, and I'll turn over to Stuart to begin the meeting.
Thank you, Andrew. This is the regularly scheduled May meeting of the City of Worcester Board of Building and Zoning Appeals. This is a volunteer board of Worcester citizens established to hear planning matters as specified in the City of Worcester Planning and Zoning Code. My name is Stuart Fitzgibbon, and I am chair of this board. Because these hearings are a matter of legal record, this meeting is recorded. As Andrew just indicated, we ask that if and when you speak loudly and clearly. We also ask that prior to speaking, each speaker gives their name, address, and affirmation to tell the truth. The applications to be considered tonight are applications number 2107, 21-10, 21-11, 21-12, 21-13, and 21-14. Following tonight's meeting, the applicant in each case will receive notification of the board's decision regarding their application. Our first order of business on our agenda is a roll call. Doug?
Here.
Ben?
Here.
Greg?
Here.
Ken?
Here.
And I too am here. Member Mark Reynolds has an excused absence tonight.
Actually, Stuart, I think Mark just joined the meeting.
Yes, he did.
He did. Mark,
How are you?
you are here.
Yes.
All right, our next order of business is approval of the April meeting minutes. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
I'll second. Ben.
Thank you, Ben. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, the minutes are approved. All right, our first application tonight is BZA 21-07. Jeffrey Vitalo requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1125-03H3 to allow a driveway without a hard surface at 3207 Shelley Boulevard in an R2 single-family residential zoning district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, sir. I am Jay Vitalo, address Shelley Boulevard, and I affirm to tell the truth.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
For the plan itself, the driveway is over 275 foot long. We do plan on putting the concrete sidewalk in at the front of the property and a concrete skirt from the road to the driveway. And after that, we're asking that we can do limestone the rest of the way.
Did
And
you,
your reason- And your reason for asking to do this is what?
Because of the cost and how far and long the driveway is itself. And we probably would have had it a little bit closer, but there's a drain storm sewer. It's actually a little bit more to the left than we thought on these plans. And that's why we placed the house where it is.
I think you have in your application that in a couple of years, you'd want to concrete the driveway eventually or put a hard surface down.
Yes, sir, when funds permit.
Could you give us a time frame for that? Would you be willing to put that in the variance approval?
I honestly don't have a good time frame for you, sir. I'm hoping within 3 to 5 years, if that suffices.
Where is Shelley Road?
It's right off of Winkler.
Okay.
And is the odd shape of your lot due to the Dix Expressway going behind your property?
Yes, sir, it is.
Have you guys considered at all what type of limestone gravel you'd be using? I know that there's some of the different kinds have more or less dust, and I'm sure that the neighboring houses would probably want something that has the least amount of dust.
Honestly, I don't know. The builder had all that in the plans. I can find out. But if there's a certain kind that you guys need us to get, I'm more than willing to do that.
Are there other questions from members of the board?
Is this average setback across the street about 100 feet or so, or what's the average setback for the houses along Shelley?
Yeah, I would say like probably a third, probably 50 feet, 75 feet.
50 or 75 from the street themselves. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Have you spoken to any of the neighbors about the variance requested for a limestone driveway compared to a hard surface?
No, sir, I'm not. I have not. I know that they probably will be finding out soon because none of them have sidewalks down to the right of me. So they're probably going to have to be putting sidewalks in here soon. So I probably won't be a fan favorite.
How long is your driveway? Let's see.
It's over 275
Let's
feet
see.
long.
That's a long driveway.
Yes.
That's about 5 times the average length then, from what you told me.
Yes, sir. That's why it's not really in our cards right now.
Right. And you are putting in a sidewalk.
A sidewalk and a concrete skirt. Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll open this application for public hearing. Andrew, if you could look on YouTube for me.
And I've opened the public hearing on YouTube. I haven't had any comments on YouTube yet, nor have I received any prior to the meeting.
All right, we'll wait a bit to see if anything comes in.
Doesn't look like I'm getting any comments regarding this application.
All right, and we will close the public hearing. Are there any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Could-
Doug, were you saying something?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as requested, but I would like to add a requirement that within 5-year period, he does finish it with a hard surface. If that's acceptable to the applicant.
Yes, sir. That seems acceptable to me.
Doug, were you going to say something?
You talking to me?
Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, break off, but this is fine. I like the 5 years works, solves my problem.
Okay.
I'll
right.
second that motion.
Okay. Ken seconds. And Greg moved. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-07. Greg?
I will vote yes, and I see you do have some unique circumstances there that makes it difficult to put in a hard surface at this point, which are in a neighborhood, if it's the area I'm thinking about, where you're amongst a lot of other residential properties, and they all had the hard surfaces. And I think in consideration of your neighbors, that should be your plan down the road. So I vote yes, based on the 5-year being improved.
Thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm voting yes as well. I think the 5 years is a reasonable time to put the hard surface on the 275 feet. I would note good faith on the applicant's part by putting a 250-foot sidewalk in per the city rules. No one else on the street has a sidewalk yet, as I can see. So they are starting in that and show their good faith, but that's part of the plan. So I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Doug?
I'm gonna vote yes. I think the 5 years covers my concern, because we're, so I'm gonna vote yes.
Thank you, Doug. Ben?
I will also vote yes, with the stipulation of the 5 years and the fact that he is putting a sidewalk in and the area does not have one currently. I think that's a good move on his part, and I vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Mark?
I'll also be voting yes due to the reasons stated by my colleagues. And I'd also like to point out that the criteria F are the special conditions that exist due to the existing storm sewer that kind of cuts the property in half. That's making them have this longer driveway. And I think as long as it's done within the 5 years, that'll be great.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I too will vote yes, particularly for the reason just cited by Mark. I think that this lot does have a special circumstance due to the city utility running through it. I appreciate the commitment of the owners to concrete the driveway. As you say, you won't be popular with your neighbors starting the sidewalk. But again, that's ultimately what makes a city residential neighborhood a nice place to be. So I thank you for your accommodation on that. So with that, your application is approved.
All right. Thank you guys very much.
You're
And,
welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
and I apologize for, I just noticed an email after the voting, but it's from Eugene Howell at 655 Torrey Circle. He says there is no objection to this application on his part. So I apologize for not seeing that earlier, but just wanted to note that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. All right, next up, we have BZA 21-10. J. Douglas Druschel requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 111301E13D regarding the amount of outdoor storage permitted. Sections 111301E13F and 112503H3 regarding the use of gravel for outdoor storage, parking, and drives. And section 112305B regarding interior parking lot landscaping at 1109 Pittsburgh Avenue in an I-1 zoning district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, I'm Doug Druschel here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Druschel.
Okay. I've been kind of Zoom Hades on my desktop computer, so I'm on my phone. So I apologize for that, but such is the Zoom world. There will be no dogs barking in the background or babies crying. The application in question is pretty straightforward. I should have Doug Druschel, 225 North Market Street. I affirm to tell the truth. With me also on the call is Jason Miller of the applicant, who would be able to answer any questions, and Bill White, the engineering firm, who also can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Druschel. Please proceed.
Putting the variance request into kind of three baskets. The first is kind of similar to what you just heard, and it's requesting an exception to the otherwise applicable requirement of concrete or asphalt paving of the exterior storage area. It's a little tricky to call this a storage area because it's not really storage so much as when they make a product, they make big things, dumpsters and things like that. And after they make it, they have to put it somewhere until it gets shipped out to be sold. And so that's really more the use of this area. But the area in question also is planned for future expansion. And so it's not really a potential for permanent parking lot or driveway or anything like that. And so the request is to not be required to pave that and only to have to tear it up in the not too distant future. Also, sort of a preface to this is I've always wondered kind of what is the purpose of the requirement of either asphalt or concrete. I think it almost has to be mostly aesthetic, because environmentally it's not a good thing. Environmentally, you're better off to have gravel to allow water to soak through and soak into the ground. And so if my surmise is correct that the main idea of it is aesthetic, then the geography of the area also supports this. And that is, if you've driven by I know sometimes you like to drive by the sites before the hearing. If you've driven by this on Henry Street, you basically can't see it. The site is in the middle of the woods, and from Henry Street, to which this portion of the property is closer, is a very steep hill to go up to get to the site in question. And it would be kind of tricky even to get out with your boots on and climb up the hill. You probably could, but it's pretty steep. And this really is one of the kind of classic cases of a variance based upon the unusual lay of the land. I'm not sure if I know of anywhere else in Worcester where you have the combination of an industrial area that is in a woods that's on a very steep slope on the edge of the property. There might be another one, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Second variance request is similar to that, and requesting an exception to the interior landscaping of the parking lot. Again, it's not really a parking lot. I mean, vehicles will be parked there from time to time, but the area in question is the same area that we're talking about, that you can't see from anywhere. And it's behind kind of what I would call the main building that's fronts on Pittsburgh Avenue. You can't see it from Pittsburgh Avenue. You'd have a hard time seeing it if you even drove in the driveway for a ways, and you definitely can't see it from Henry Street. So that supports that one. And then the third variance is a request from the amount of space that's considered to be outdoor storage. And again, outdoor storage is not really an accurate phrase. It was, I suppose, the closest that Andrew could come up with in terms of what to label this. But it's just to put the stuff until it's moved. So that's kind of the big picture. Looking at just a little more detail on it, you have in your materials quite a number of pretty similar variances that have been granted over the years. I won't bore you with going through all those. And looking just very quickly at the classic variance conditions, A, special conditions peculiar to the land. Again, very peculiar site, as I've cited earlier. It's the minimum variance requested. It will have no impact on the character of the neighborhood. Nobody else in the neighborhood can see it. No impact on government services and so on. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jason or Bill White if they have anything they want to add at this point or answer any questions that the board might have. Thank you.
I'm Jason Miller, 1109 Pittsburgh Avenue, Worcester, Ohio. I affirm to tell the truth. And I think Doug had run through the main points. I think he did a good job of presenting. I want to thank everyone for their time and consideration in this. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer what I can.
I think one of the things that makes these variances work is that it is such a isolated property, as Doug has said, and is in your information, that you can hardly see these improvements. Can you assure us that there's no plans to expand the property beyond the boundaries, like on the backside with Henry, where it's too steep probably to do anything? But if that was cleared and then people had a visual sight of these developments, it could change the need for the variances or the use of the if they work or not. I guess there's no plans for any other growth beyond what's shown here.
Yeah, correct. We're actually, I mean, it would, as you can see in the drawing, there's a steep bank there and there's mature trees there. No, we can't go that way at all.
Thank you.
And if I could provide just some clarification on our gravel prohibition, though it may not be as impervious as pavement or concrete, it does create runoff as seen by the catch basins on the plan. So you do have to account for runoff on gravel. So that is one of the parts of it. The second is there's some proclivity for gravel to create dust. Doesn't happen in all situations, but if not maintained, that is concern. And I suppose a third would be aesthetics, but that is kind of a third concern with gravel. And this isn't specific to this application. This is just in general why the code doesn't allow gravel.
Thank you, Andrew. Additional comments from applicants? Okay, questions from members of the board?
I would have maybe one more comment of we do have the structure will be built to where we could potentially expand to the west, another segment. So then we would be tearing up anything that we would be putting down. At this point, we don't have a time frame on when we would expand, but the potential also would be there for that. So we would be a double hit to have to tear up what we would lay down to expand if we were to do so.
Yeah, just to make clear in response to Greg's question, that it could not be expansion towards Henry Street because of the hill. It is hoped to expand the building slightly to, I guess it'd be the west, which was the point I was making earlier about what would be torn up if they had to pave it now.
So on the south side of this diagram, south of the building and the storage lot or whatever you'd like to call it, that's all a wooded area. To the west of that, is that also wooded area? On the left side of this diagram?
I'm pretty sure, yes. I'll defer to Jason on that.
So you're talking over in the, so you're on the other side of the detention basin?
Yes, on the left, yeah, the left side of the diagram.
Left side of that. Okay, so at after the detention basin, there's a tree line all the way. You can see all the way to the left, there's a hard line, dark line is the property boundary. So yes, that whole area to the left of that is going to remain wooded.
Thank you.
And it looks like there's a buffer area between your property and the next residential street.
Which direction are you headed there?
I'm looking to the west of the property where you get into the RT area. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not looking at the wrong direction. So that would be
Towards Minerva.
Yeah, the next street is quite a ways away.
yeah, I'm following. I'm kind of going up Henry Street toward the RT.
So the property to the west is zone RT. But as we showed, that is a pretty significant tree buffer, and I think there's a little creek here as well.
Okay, that's what I would just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, Minerva is the next street over.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
I would like to also point out that there is existing pavement. So on the top part of the form, you can see up top there, that's an existing route to where when we do our loading and unloading, that's where the trucks will pull in. So the trucks, any trucks and leaving the property would not be running through the gravel. We wouldn't bring them in and try to turn around and go. We just loop through on the existing pavement, get loaded, and then loop right back out. So there should be plenty of buffer. That yes, there you can see the lane on the left side of the buildings. There's a lot of buffer then all the way out towards Pittsburgh Avenue. So we would go past our main plant and all the way out. So the traffic heading out to off property would be only running on concrete. Or I should say asphalt, hard surface.
And I assume you're going to move some of that existing parking in the back of your existing facility to allow the traffic to get back to the new facility.
Yes, there'll be a little bit of readjusting up through there, but we shouldn't need to readjust a whole lot. Just I think in that overview, it looks a little bit more crowded than what it actually is. You can see the lane through the center of the containers. And I'd also point out this is about as full as our yard is ever going to get. We We typically build to order, and so there's we try to, as soon as they're built, we'll get a load, and a load consists of 6 or 7 units, and get those out and gone. So that again is I don't like to see the yard that full. And in the existing yard, there'll be smaller containers than these as well. But yes, there'll be a pathway right through there to where the trucks, and that's the existing traffic flow right now.
All right. Other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none. Andrew, let's declare the public hearing portion of the meeting open on application BZA 2110. See if we have anything on YouTube.
And I haven't received any comments prior to the meeting or on YouTube as of yet.
Give it a minute or two just to see if anything comes in on the delay. While we're waiting, Mr. Miller, if I could ask you a question. When you go to do your eventual expansion, would you at that point then pave the area?
I don't know. I don't know that the circumstances would change a lot, other than that we would have a little bit bigger building, a little bit less area. It would definitely take out the variable of pulling up some concrete, but no, we haven't talked through that component.
Okay, thank you.
And I've not received any comments on YouTube.
All right, then we will declare the public hearing closed. Any further questions from members of the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that we accept this proposal. But I'd like to add that they keep the tree line to the south. When I drove by there, I think it does 2 things. One, it helps to hide what they're doing, and it is very well hidden, but also it keeps the dust and everything down, should there be that part of it. And if they do take some of it down, that they replace it with some evergreens or something to, a line or something to a buffer from Henry Street.
Okay, I'll accept that as a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark.
And can I just clarify that you're saying that anything in addition to what's shown on the plan?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
So you're saying what's shown on the plan is acceptable, and if they take any more?
Yeah, I when I drove by there, it's pretty well hidden with what's there. I would just like to see if their intentions are, or to take down any of those trees, that they would replace it with other trees, maybe in a straight line or something else, but that there's always some kind of buffer to Henry Street with foliage.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we have a motion and a second with the condition of maintaining the trees. Doug?
Well, I'm going to vote yes, and the biggest reason is I think it's very well hidden back there. Even like it was mentioned, if you drive back the driveway, I drove a little ways back and still couldn't see it. And from Henry Street with the trees and the topography, I think it's well hidden from that side too. And there are no residences right there, but per se, but still, I think it's well hidden, and I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Mark?
I'm also going to vote yes, and along the same lines of Doug, I think the wooded area surrounding the property kind of solves a lot of the issues that may be presented with the various variances they're requesting. It serves the purpose of hiding it, so you know the characteristics of the neighborhood aren't changing because no one's really going to know a change even happened if they can't see it. And two, the wooded area is going to provide a really good buffer. If there were to be any dust, the trees and all the vegetation around will knock it down, and it shouldn't impact any of the neighbors.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Ben?
As Mark just stated, point D, the characteristic of the neighborhood won't change. It's already hidden and it's already their property. They're just adding on to it. So I think it makes complete sense of what they're trying to do. And with the wooded barrier, it, like Mark also said, it'll knock down any of the potential dust or debris that could come up from it. So I will vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Greg?
I vote yes also for the reasons previously stated.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm voting yes for all the reasons stated, and I believe it does fulfill the characteristic of being a very unusual property in the amount of topographic change and that. So I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I too will vote yes for all the reasons cited by my colleagues. It is a unique situation. The fact that the property is pretty well hidden, and particularly in proximity to a residential area, nobody is going to see all of the interior criteria that the code lays out for landscaping and so forth. And the fact that we didn't get any pushback, as we often do from residential areas, argues in favor of our logic that this is a unique circumstance. So I too will vote yes, and your variances are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, next up, BZA 21-11. Matthew Knight requesting a use variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1109.02D to allow a detached single-family dwelling and an area variance from Section 1115.04A to allow a building within the front yard setback at 4029 Cleveland Road in a C3 zoning district. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, my wife and I are here. My name is Matthew Knight, 4029 Cleveland Road, and I affirm to tell the truth.
And my name
Thank
is.
you very much. Please proceed, Mr. Knight.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they needed me to talk.
No, that's fine. Either. So,
No, go ahead. You can introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say my name is Christina Knight, also 4029 Cleveland Road, Worcester, and I affirm to tell the truth if I'm asked.
Very good. Now, you may both proceed.
Okay. What we would like to do is we would like to put in a single-family dwelling. You can see there to the southwest of our house there, and that's the plan. We've drawn on the picture there where we'd like to put the house. And it's a little different. We are in a commercial area, so we don't have the same circumstances as a lot of residential homes and areas, neighborhoods. So we are willing to answer any questions.
Now, I read in your application.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, I appreciate that. The question I have, I read in your application, is there a topographical issue that's prompting you to put the house so far up on the property?
There is. The rear of the property is a fairly steep hill, and it would be quite a structure to build off the back of that hill. So putting the house up there is really the most financially logical place to put it. So we don't want to cross the right of way line there in the front, that black line. So we want to make sure we stay back from that. But behind the house is topographically challenging, and then if you get down too low, it's in a flood zone. So we definitely would not want to put a house down by where that barn is in a flood zone.
And I also want to state that we made it
And
bigger.
that was going to be my,
Sorry. We made it look,
no, go ahead.
it looks a little bit bigger than, it'll probably be smaller than that. But we figured going smaller would be best than enlarging. So I think that is more than the square footage that we would need.
On that picture.
On that picture the blue location.
I assume the black line, as you said, is the right of way. Have you taken into consideration, Cleveland Road Route 3 there is a pretty main road, and sometime down the future, if they ever expanded that and put in 3 lanes, I mean, that could be right in your front porch. I guess what would your response to that be?
So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's good.
Yeah, no, we have thought of that, and it is a very big right of way there. That is pretty big. I mean, they would be putting in quite a few lanes there to do that. It does jut over, and we're actually still not entirely sure why it juts over like that. We know there is a stream bed over there to the south. You can see where the woods start to show up, where the brown is. But
It goes back.
it does come back on the other side of that, down the road a little bit.
How close to the current street would the front of this house be?
Not to the right of way, you're asking to the actual street?
Yeah, to the actual street.
I mean, that's, I think I have it, it's, it'd be what, 67, thank you. Sorry, I feel like I have it there. 67 feet roughly. So,
Would you consider just expanding your current house, making it a little larger for your additional family that you have?
We have considered that. We understand that it is a variance to add a kitchen either way. We would like a place for my mother-in-law who is getting older, and we'd like to be able to take care of her. We've looked at houses that have second properties or mother-in-law suites on them, and we have found some other houses, but they're not in Worcester. And I teach at the high school. We'd really like to stay in Worcester. We've made a lot of friends. We like the town. So we would prefer to just either, add an entire mother-in-law suite onto the house or an additional property with a kitchen. And since it's a variance either way,
we'd
we would
rather
prefer
have
have
the
a,
privacy of another house.
And you would anticipate if, 20 years from now, you're selling the property, you would sell it as one parcel with two residences?
Yes.
Correct, yes. Because it's not two lots, so we wouldn't
Right.
be able
We
to
would
do
never,
that, right?
yeah, we would never try and chop
I don't
the,
wanna-
chop the lot or anything
No.
like that. So ideally down the road, sadly someday if the mother-in-law is no longer with us, we would use that house as a place for family to stay when they come to Worcester to see us and things like
Or
that.
our son, if he wants to live with us still.
Yeah. He's
He's young now.
he's 5 years old. I don't think he plans on moving away soon, but
I don't know if it's a good investment, but that's really not relevant to the variances. So
we're
Okay.
aware that we would not get the resale of two houses worth of property. Yeah, we have thought about that, and that it probably would be, somewhat of a loss.
So I see how like you guys said, the right of way comes, I guess that'd be to the east on your property. If that right of way line stayed straight, I mean, do you have, what would that be to the front of the house then? 30 feet?
That would be, we would love to get that right of way changed.
Yeah, no, it would
but
be at what, maybe 30 something feet, yeah.
not even.
No, it'd be more than that. He wants to know if this stayed straight. This is 21, so it'd be like
Yeah,
another 15
feet
or
or so.
From the
so.
road to the right of way, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it stayed straight, it'd be a solid 30 or 40 feet to the right of way line.
yeah, your existing house is back off the road quite a ways.
oh yeah, it's like
Right.
82, 83 feet off the road.
Yeah, the front yard is fairly large.
Yeah.
I agree with Greg in that under the current condition of the road, it doesn't appear to be an issue in terms of space, but if because of where that right of way is, it is a touch concerning that if there was expansion of that road, I think on your map you're showing like less than 7 feet between the corner of the house and the right of way.
Yeah, and we could move that back if we needed to a little bit still. It doesn't have to be that close to that right of way.
It just can't be back too far, or like he said, then it starts to slope down and it just would cost more and just be harder to do.
But if that would, if we could move that back if we needed to, if that would,
How far back could you go?
we would have to talk to the builder, but our house you can see is, back a little ways. But the other problem comes to that bottom part of that picture. The slope also comes off to that side.
And goes down into like a ravine.
If you start moving the house too far back, then the bottom of this picture to the south, the house would start to go into a ravine to the south, which would cause more problems.
And there's just as, oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask Andrew a question about the statement in the his report that single-family homes are prohibited in the C3 district. Is that the correct interpretation, Andrew?
Yes, and that's the reason for the use
Yeah.
variance, any additional unit, whether if it was
So
even
this is
attached.
the existing house is a non-conforming use.
Correct. So
in that respect, and therefore you cannot expand it even if they wanted to.
And then it's my understanding that the Cleveland Road right of way gets very large in that area is basically because of the stream. If there was ever a need to put a more significant bridge in there, I doubt the bridge or the pavement would go that far, but the slope or something like that. That's my understanding why it's so large in that area.
Okay.
Andrew, I apologize for dropping off the meeting. The power cord went bad on my laptop.
We're losing him again.
Okay. Andrew,
Yeah,
I apologize. My power cord went bad, which is why I dropped off the meeting.
yeah, okay. It's like we
So
have
I
you
am
back
now,
there.
so I'm now on my phone. Where
Okay.
are we?
We're just having discussion with the applicant regarding the location of the building and the right of way and the need for a use variance, whether it's in addition to the building or if it's a detached separate unit. And then I've just put up on the screen, so it's the contours of the site kind of showing the slope to the side and the rear there.
Another question, Andrew. I noted that the parcel directly north of this recently changed hands on the auditor sheet, and it's a large parcel. Have you any information about commercial development that's going to be occurring directly north of this?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay, are there further questions from members of the board? Hearing none, Andrew, let's declare the public hearing portion of the meeting open on application 2111 and see if there's any public input on YouTube.
And again, I didn't receive any comments prior to the meeting and have not received anything up to now on YouTube either.
Again, I apologize for technical difficulties and dropping off. One question that I had was, had you considered, or is the city allowing two driveways from the same lot onto Cleveland Road?
Is that to us or to Andrew?
Well, I guess it's to you, because I guess the thought I had was having two driveways coming out onto Cleveland Road might be difficult. Had you thought about maybe routing the driveway around behind your existing house to pick up your driveway?
Yeah, we're open to having it connect to our driveway if need be. We just figured, since the way we had initially planned with the garage just coming off the road there, that shorter driveway would have worked. But if it's an issue, then we can always just have it come off of ours.
I found when I pulled in your driveway to examine the property, I had to back out, right? Because you have a gate there. So it appeared that somebody had driven through the grass to turn back around, but I did back out successfully. It wasn't a big deal. But my question is an elderly person trying to back out, maybe there's some difficulty. Again, that's not necessarily under our purview but I'm just saying that it was, I had to back out.
We would definitely have a turnaround or make it so that, yeah, we don't ever back out into our driveway, and we
eventually would like to put a turnaround out front on our driveway. It just hasn't happened yet, but we just allow people to turn around in the grass, where you probably saw. But yes, if for her driveway, we would put either a turnaround or, it just, yeah,
Sorry.
how it would be accessible.
or it could loop right through to ours.
Yeah, or we would just have it loop through to ours, yeah.
Because
Whatever
it is very difficult to back out onto Cleveland Road for
Mhm.
anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the reason for my question. Is Cleveland Road often seems to have a great deal of traffic, and I don't envy you having to deal with that. So I guess now my question is to Andrew. Has this gone to the city engineer for approval?
Well, through zoning, you're allowed to have two driveways. The city engineer hasn't looked at it completely. They might want to look at a couple things, one being the spacing of the drives and then the presence of the bridge there. So they have not fully reviewed it yet. There's a right-of-way permit when you connect to the street where they give it the full review.
Okay, then I guess I would just leave that as, something for the Knights to think about, just as a practical and safety matter. Is there anything coming in on YouTube, Andrew, for the public hearing?
No, there's not.
All right, then I will declare the public hearing closed on this matter. Are there any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we vote on this to approve them, the variance request.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Ben. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-11. Greg,
I'm really torn on this. Given the right of way where it is, how close you'll have that house to that right of way. I worry that in the long run, it's going to create problems for you if that ever gets expanded. I also, I guess it just doesn't feel like, this doesn't make sense to me. But that's not my purview as far as on the approving the variances or not. You have no neighbors that you're affecting with this. Your property is kind of unique being there on Cleveland Road and the elevations and topography you have to deal with. So kind of hesitantly, I'll vote yes for it.
okay, thank you, Greg. Ben?
Just like Greg, I've gone back and forth thinking about this. I know the neighborhood, I know the area. I would recommend moving the house back as far as you can without incurring a lot of extra costs because of the, as Andrew stated, the potential for the bridge and the slope and everything else that would incur. But I will vote to approve with the recommendation to move the house back as far as possible.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Doug?
Well, I struggled with this too, as Greg mentioned, and Ben, and what I think is, as long as the house goes back as far as it can, I am going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Ken?
I'm voting no. The house itself is a non-conforming use because the purpose of the C3 district is to encourage commercial development, and therefore single-family houses are, a new one could not be built on a regular lot. So I don't think, and having two houses on the same property has been a long-standing no-no in the city because it just creates more problems down the road in attempting to sell a property that way. So I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Mark?
Sorry about that. I'm going to vote yes. I think that it's kind of a unique situation with the floodplain behind the current house. And so I will say that I agree with my colleagues in that the farther this house can be back from that right away, the better it's going to be for everybody and hopefully alleviate any headaches down for you guys down the road. But again, I guess that's more of you guys' issue. So I'll vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. For my part, I'm of the same mixed mind as a number of my colleagues. And I agree with Ken's assessment that this would not be normally permitted anywhere else in the city. But you do have a peculiar circumstance in that you are a remaining residential lot in a commercial district. So I think you're entitled to some consideration for that. I think, as others of my colleagues have suggested, trying to get the house further back from the road, the fact that you're still subject to city engineering review for the driveway and the access to Cleveland Road really suggests that you may want to think about trying to do something different, like route the driveway and the turnaround around behind your existing house, if nothing else for safety's sake. So I'll vote yes with those caveats, and will wish you well working with the city to come up with a final approvable plan. So your the vote is 5-1, so your variance is approved.
Oh, I didn't know if you unmuted it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Good luck. You have a tough situation in hand.
May I ask one quick question?
Sure, please do.
Is it a separate variance or anything to move the house back as far as we can?
Oh, do we have to apply again for something? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I agree that you're right. We should put it, as far away from the right of way as possible. But if we move it back, 15, 20 feet because we find out, we talk to the builder and they can do it, then it might cost a little more. That's not a new use or variance application or anything, is it?
Andrew, I'll let you comment on that. I don't believe so, because we've approved you for what you've asked for. So if you can move it back, you're only making the situation less of a variance.
Okay.
So I don't believe that you would have to come to us again, because we've approved you for what you proposed. We're simply suggesting that for safety's sake, you try to move it back.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
That's completely correct.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you.
as well.
All right. Next up, we have BZA 21-12. Nick Brenner requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 111301D3 to allow an accessory building in the front yard. Section 111301E8D2. Hold on one second. Let me. Thank you, Andrew. All right, now that we've solved the technical problems and I'm back on my laptop, hopefully this will go better.
I apologize. That was my fault. I admitted you when you
Let's see.
were talking there.
We were at 113101D3 to allow an accessory building in the front yard. Section 111301E8D2 and H3 regarding fencing color and height. Section 111301E13D to allow more outdoor storage than permitted. Section 111703D1A to allow non-full cutoff light fixtures. Section 111905 to allow an accessory structure to deviate from architectural standards. Section 112305B6C to allow parking aisles longer than permitted without a landscaped island. Section 112504D to provide less off-street parking than required. And section 112503B5 to allow reduced parking setbacks for property on the east side of Burbank Road, parcel 670299 in a C3 district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of these many applications?
Yes, this is Tom O'Neill with Menards. Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you. Again, my name is Tom O'Neill, and I'm with Menard Incorporated. Our address is 5101 Menard Drive, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 54703. And I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'm filling in this evening for Nick Brenner, the Menards project manager, on this particular project in Worcester, as Nick has an unavoidable conflict with another one or two other virtual meetings this evening and is unable to attend. I come from some level of experience on this particular project. This was something that I have been working with as far as getting to know the market and the city here for a number of years, and had started working with Redstone at the infancy of the deal and of the project. And things like these types of projects do take time to come together. And I know it's a project that Redstone and Meyer and Menards have been working on for quite some time. And I think everyone is thankful that is involved, that even with a pandemic ongoing, that everybody from the development side of things remains committed to moving forward with the project. Just from an overall standpoint, from a site planning perspective, the Menard store that's proposed for the site faces Burbank Road and faces generally to the southwest. In a lot of instances, in most instances, we would typically locate our lumberyard and our warehousing area behind the store, which would in this instance be to the northeast. But there are a number of issues that prevent us from doing so in this particular instance. Primarily, one, the 100-foot wide electrical easement corridor that traverses the property and really doesn't allow any opportunity for work within that. And our fence line is going immediately up to and adjacent to that easement. And the other site planning effect of the property is the fact that the overall developable area is not only limited by that easement, but there is a lot of grade change from north to south on the property, and making up those transitions also affects the ability to site plan and lay out the property, and thus has some effects on what we're going to be talking about from a variance perspectives, and that it just makes the footprint that can be developed tight, and as a result, a number of variances are necessitated. One, we are requesting variances to allow the accessory building in the front yard. Typically, on the vast majority of our projects, we would place that warehousing building within the rear yard, but with the easement, it's just not possible in this particular instance. The fence height is such that in order to have storage of materials on the inside of the lumberyard, on the inside of that fence, And in order to properly securitize the lumberyard area, the fence height is unable to be complied with. And so we're requesting a variance from that aspect. We're also requesting a variance. There's a limitation on the amount of outdoor storage area. Menards, from a site planning perspective, does not build multiple size units or buildings or have different types of or areas of lumberyards associated with our stores. We'd like to have some level of consistency and familiarity and a constant merchandising plan that our guests can feel comfortable with and know where to find things regardless of what store they're shopping on that particular day. The variance from a full cutoff fixture standpoint is for a handful of decorative fixtures along the front of the garden center extending north of the garden center. There's some decorative stanchions located along that wrought iron fence, and they're the bulbs are literally household bulbs that are fit within those globes of those decorative features, and we're requesting variance from the fact that they are not cut off in that area, but in all the other areas as far as parking lot and the lumberyard, we are complying with full cutoff luminaires in those areas. There's a number of variances related to parking. We're asking for variance relative to aisles longer than permitted without a landscaped island, and as well as a variance to allow a reduced amount of parking. Code would require us to have quite a few, several hundred more parking spaces than we know on a historical basis that we need. And I think everyone would likely agree that it's better to have fewer as opposed to way too much parking in a situation like this when there's some known history behind the use. And if we were to, but we also know we need a right about 400, and if we were to put additional landscaped islands in the middle, we would be dipping below that number as well, and we get to a point where it would be too low. We're also requiring or requesting a revision to the parking setback, and again, that is because the site is squeezed, because the site is the grades and the necessary transition into the site requires that in order to fit the number of parking spaces we need, that we need a smidge of a reduction in the setbacks. And I believe we're also requesting that the accessory structure deviate from the architectural standards, and that is a result of the materials with which we construct that, and so we're requesting a variance for that. I would, going through the standards for the grant of a variance, I think there's some very strong arguments that special conditions and circumstances exist that support the grant of the variances. I believe the easement corridor is absolutely one of those. I believe the amount of grading that is necessary in order to bring this development together, in order to provide the necessary cuts and fills to have this be a cohesive shopping center development, to have numerous tiers of grades at which Menards sits and the middle portion of the development sits and Meyer sits, in order to transition those grades from the north to the south ends of the site, also provides a special circumstance that limits the amount of area and results in the number of the variances that are requested. We've done our best to limit the variances, and they're only the ones that are absolutely necessary to allow for us to go forward with the developer and with Meyer in order to bring this together. We don't believe there's any adverse effects to the neighborhood or governmental services or anything that would be contrary to the intent and spirit of the code. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we would request your support of the grant of the various variances. Thank you.
Thank you. You summarized well a long list of issues. Are there questions from members of the board?
Yes, when you're talking about the lighting, decorative lighting where do I see that? On the black wrought iron fence? Or is there other places
Yes.
that exists?
Just that is correct. You circled the exact correct area.
Okay, so it's just that you're talking about. You're not talking about, I don't know, large lighting on around the clock kind of thing.
No, those are a handful of spaced standards along the black wrought iron fence that
Okay.
have a small globe on top with a household bulb within the frosted globe.
Okay, I went out there and drive around and see. No, but help me here. Where is the what did I see, a 14-foot fence? Where is that running on this diagram? Did I
That
get
extends.
right?
There you go. Precisely.
Where? Just gonna show me again. I don't see it. Oh, okay.
So it's all fencing that would ordinarily be behind the building, encircling the lumberyard and warehouse.
And the only differences in the fence are because one is a wood fence and then the iron, wrought iron fence. Is that what I'm understanding? I mean, there's
Correct.
no
We have a
different
decorative
colors.
wrought iron fence that is along the garden center
Yes.
that we, so
Okay,
that's for
but-
visual appeal in that area, but
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily have a function as does the 14-foot height, the fence that's below the wrought iron fence, because you can see from the cut view from the side that interior or inside of the lumberyard, we utilize that for stacking palletized materials.
Sure. Okay, but I just want to be sure the wood fencing is all the same color, all the same designs.
That's correct. It's a
Okay,
treated
thank you.
lumber that is 2 inches, 2x8s that are 14 foot high.
Thank you.
So Andrew, am I correct that this has gone through Planning Commission?
Yes, it received a final development plan approval this evening prior to the BZA meeting. One of the conditions was that these variances are met. The other was, and I forgot to mention this, is the applicant is requesting approval for a 2-year period prior to a zoning certificate. They've also requested that on this variance, so it's usually 1 year. They're requesting this to be valid for 2 years.
Essentially, that's to give them 2 years to build it, is what you're saying.
Correct. They would have 2 years to get
All right, got
their
it.
zoning
Got it.
certificate. Yeah,
Thank you.
an additional year from our requirements, and that's the completely the power of the Planning Commission and the BZA to extend their approvals.
Yeah, I guess the interesting question, Andrew, that comes to my mind is, given that it's basically all undeveloped agricultural land around this, we're establishing a lot of precedent here that then I think is going to come into play as the land around us eventually gets developed. I'm assuming that that's probably what's in the future. So is there a sense that if the land comes into the city, what it's going to be zoned?
We really haven't had any discussions about any land outside of the city adjacent to this site. I know it falls off pretty hard when you get to the north, and you also have the power line, as you can see on the plan, running directly to the north to hit Burbank there, so that kind of creates an isolated area. But we haven't received any interest regarding these properties, so I guess only time will tell. It could be 5 years, it could be 50 years, who knows?
Yeah, well, as you know from a lot of prior discussions, we have to be careful about setting precedent. And basically, this is a corporate standard development plan that we're being asked to say, here are the corporate standards, here are all the things we need. And if we approve them, we've essentially set a precedent that we're now in the business of approving all this stuff. Not saying that that's bad or good, but it certainly makes for a difficult process.
And I think that's where the board looks at the criteria and looks at what makes this site different than a flat piece of square land that's zoned commercially, that makes these variances necessary, or are some of the variances just really not that impactful.
All right, questions from the board.
Well, I've got a question about the parking requirement. Andrew, is the parking requirement for commercial areas the same it's just per square footage for anything within the C3 district?
Yeah, any retail commercial use is subject to the calculation that was applied.
Right.
So that could be, a 3,000 square foot, a little corner store. It could be a Menards. So it's pretty much across the board. You apply that standard to any retail in any district.
Okay. Well, I can see that there's a difference between a grocery store of 50,000 square feet or something like that, and which has more intense use than something like a warehousey store like Menards. We don't have any difference in our code, I take it, for the amount of required parking.
Correct. It does not differentiate. The only concessions it makes is the dead storage areas up to, I think it's 15% can be removed, but it's retail is all looked at the same.
So Menards, so the representative from Menards, I'd like to know, how did you come to the 409 spaces or the whatever, based on your other stores? Are they in urban communities, suburban, rural, does it vary from place to place? You're sort of asking us to trust you that you've done good research and this is exactly what you need. All we have is our code.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity to respond to the question. Thank you. Yes, we have. I think one of the good things that we have is we have lots of experience with other stores that provides us some solid empirical data as far as the amount of parking that we need, and whether it's the store in Massillon or Cuyahoga Falls or Kent, we have historically determined that we need between 400, 410, 420 parking stalls. we would probably not want to drop below 400 in any event. I think one of the things that we've discovered from a Menards perspective over time in coming up with that that threshold, that floor amount of parking, is that there are some things that differentiate our use, partially because of that larger warehousey feel, but it is not traditional off-the-rack retail, and a lot of our areas within our store are not made up of that type of traditional retail. We have a lot of model kitchens. We have a lot of model bath areas.
Mm-hmm.
These are not the same type of thing that generate a lot of rack space or parking, but they take up a lot of area. And as a result, when that formulaic parking requirement is applied towards it, it inflates the number. I think we've also found that when there's other retailers out there that are building a parking lot, they're traditionally in the malls, they are building it for the Christmas season. And our Christmas season is a much more graduated spring and summer building material season. So we have a much more tapered, busy season as opposed to that intensive spike in on Black Friday and through Christmas, when a lot of retailers are planning their parking lot to accommodate that particular stretch. We've got a stretch of March, April, May, June, July, August, when we have the true early garden center and building material season. So we never have that particular peak. And I think another thing that we've found is that at any given time, when people are shopping our stores, it's not necessarily they are parking in our parking lot. There's at any given time, the folks that have made purchases and are going to pick them up in our lumberyard comprise a 15 or 20% of the vehicle count that's at a Menards store. So while they may not be parked in a particular stall, they'll be inside the lumberyard, and they're going to be in the section of fence line that has the PVC piping, picking that up, or they're going to be driving through the drive-through warehouse, picking up the siding for their project, or over in the retaining wall area, loading a bunch of block. So also, I think there's a number of mitigating factors that result in a lesser parking need and justify the grant of a variance on parking.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
Certainly, of course.
Other questions? There's certainly a lot to digest here, so I think what we'll do is we will open the public hearing, Andrew, and see what we get on YouTube, and then we will have another section for board questions after the close of the public hearing. So more time to think on this.
Okay, I've opened the public hearing, and again, on this application, I haven't received any comments from the public in email or prior to the public hearing being open.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is the public hearing on BZA 21-12.
Doesn't look like I'm receiving any comments on YouTube.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, I'll declare the public hearing portion of this meeting to be closed. Are there any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing no further questions, do we have a motion from a member of the board?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Ben. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mark?
And just a reminder that I assume you're approving it as presented, which would include the 2-year extension of the 2-year approval to have a zoning certificate.
Yes, sir.
Is that agreeable, Ben and Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so voting in the affirmative on the entire package of variances, including the 2-year extension for the zoning certificate, or the 1-year extension to 2 years for the zoning certificate on BZA 21-12. Ben?
I believe that this application does fall under point C, where variance is needed to make the use of the land for a project this size come into play. With the power lines running through the back of the property, which takes away their standard building setup as it was talked about, and moving it to the side, I think that alone would help reduce the precedents that you were talking about earlier, Stuart. So, I mean, it's not just a straight, like, this is what Menards does every time. Also, the parking requirements that were needed. I mean, they've used as much land that they can in order to get the parking in a reasonable area to fit their needs, as well as maximize the number of parking spots to meet the variance as close as possible. So for those reasons stated, I think the variances that are requested do meet point C, and I would vote yes to approve.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Mark?
I'm going to agree with a lot of what Ben said. I think that the presence of the power lines there do create a couple of unique situations for them along with topography. And that really applies to the first variance that they're requesting, including, I mean, with the building in the front yard, if you want to call it that, on the north side of the building there. And a couple of the other variances I just want to touch on real quick. The 2 different fences, I mean, it appears as though the wrought iron fence will be just a small section of it that I don't view as a major change. And that in regards to the parking spaces, I understand that we don't want to create precedent with this, but I do think that the representative from Menards made some good points in regards to the square footage of the store being a little bit different than your typical retail store, and that even though they are requesting less, I think that he gave some good reasons, in that this is similar to what they've done in other of their Menards, and they will be, to some extent, if the less parking spaces, if it's less than they need, it would only be adversely affecting them. And I don't really see any reason for them to do that. So for all those reasons, I will vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Doug?
Well, I have to agree with Ben and Mark. I think Ben pointed out that it's a unique property because of the electrical easement behind, forcing everything to be shifted around on the property. So I don't have a problem with that. And I think Mark certainly covered the other issues that I have, and the between the parking was well explained. And I really don't have a problem with the different fences, because I think they serve a purpose on the property and make sense. So I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Greg?
I don't think I've ever seen so many variance requests on one application. That's, I think, what really makes this unusual. But when you break them down individually, none of them seem unreasonable. We've approved similar things on other properties one at a time. And I also have confidence, based on the other Menards stores I've seen, that this will be well done, and it will be an improvement to the community. So I will vote yes.
Thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm voting yes. I think the applicant has sufficiently explained the reasons and the reasonableness of the variances for the project. So I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And I too will vote yes. My earlier questions on setting precedent were not intended to be critical of the application so much as it was just to make sure that we are abiding by the process that the public expects us to follow in administering the zoning code. And I would commend the representative from Menards for a very careful walkthrough of why each of these items can be justified. And as my colleagues have noted, we do have a peculiar circumstance here, a special situation that helps to argue against precedent setting because of the utility easement and the fact that the plan has had to be adjusted to become economically viable given the parcel involved. So for all those reasons, I too will vote yes. And the application for, as Greg said, I don't think I've seen one this long ever. So the whole package, including the extension of the zoning certificate period, is granted.
I appreciate the kind words, and I definitely appreciate the vote of support. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Likewise.
All right. Next up, we have BZA 21-13. Robert Papato, I apologize if I mispronounced that, requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1113-01D3 to allow an accessory building in the front yard, Section 1117-03D7 to allow an increased lighting height, Section 1123-05B6 to allow parking aisles longer than permitted without a landscaped island, Section 1127-10C, 8C, 6, 7, and 8 to allow internally illuminated projected signs larger and taller than permitted, and Section 1127-10D2 and D3B to allow freestanding signs taller and larger than permitted for property on the north side of West Smithville Western Road and east side of Burbank Road with parcel number 67-299 in a C3 district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and your pronunciation was perfect. I appreciate that. And we have Chris Jones here with Meyer, who's going to give an introduction for the project.
Thank you, Bob, and good evening, Andrew and BZA board and chairman. My name is Chris Jones, and I'm real estate manager for Meyer Inc. and I'm at 2350 3 Mile Road Northwest, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49544. And I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
You're welcome. And it's good to be in front of you guys, and just to thank you for hearing our and listening to our project and presentation and the rationale behind the variances that are before you. Although not quite as long as Menard's list of variances, we could not do this project without Menard. So it's great to hear you approve the Menard's project, because it's taking, Menard's on the north end of the project, Redstone in the center of the project, and Meyer on the south end of the project, to develop this 53 acres, to purchase the 53 acres, to have area to move a lot of dirt from high ground to low ground, and to balance it out. It's taken the three of us to share in some costs associated with the grading and the offsite improvements and the shared utility extensions. And I'm going to let our professional engineer and our consultant that's been doing Meyer projects for 30 years, Brian Smallwood, introduce each variance and take you through the reasoning that we're in front of you tonight with the request. And then I may chime in to give some historic perspective on our reason for the variance. I hope you'll keep in mind that we're an 87-year-old company, family owned. We pioneered the grocery super center in 1961 in Greenville, Michigan, and we've continued to refine our projects over the last, close to 70 years now. And so I'll stop and let Brian take over and speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
All right. Hello, everyone. Again, thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Brian Smallwood with Wolper Incorporated. Address is 1203 Walnut Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45202. And I'll run quickly through here the different variances asked for, and kind of give you some context as to why we're asking for those variances.
And you, before you get too far in, could you affirm to tell the truth?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. For tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Yes. The first variance that we are requesting is for an accessory structure in the front yard. That is the shelter that you'll see towards the south end of the property. What that is a horse shelter. It was identified as part of the store operations group that there could be a potential for a significant customer base from the Amish community in this area. So that's one of the offerings that Meyer likes to put out in the parking field in that situation. It is similar to other horse shelters that they have provided on other properties, and it can be viewed in the package. I think if Andrew wants to forward to that, it's a very simple shelter, a place for the horses to be able to, get out of the sun and be there in the parking field while the folks are inside shopping.
This is something, Mr. Chairman and board members, this is something that, as I've traveled to Worcester over the past several years and gotten out in the community and driven and looked at your community and there's a lot of agricultural farms, and I've just noticed, it struck me that there was a lot of horse and buggies, and And this is something we like to respond to. It's an additional expense for us, but we found that we're reacting to a community, that there's a segment of the population that we want to be inclusive of, and we want them to feel welcome to shop with us. And so we provide this facility. We'll likely provide water to the facility. So they'll be able to, give some water to the animals. We found that the people that utilize this facility are so appreciative of it being there that they clean up after themselves. And so it's in the front yard because that's the best place to put it, in my opinion. And it's tucked to the side, so it's out of the traffic areas. So we appreciate your support of this variance.
Absolutely. And thank you, Chris, for that additional words there. The next variance that's on our list is the request to allow for a little taller lighting height than is in your code. The rationale behind that is that the particular lights that Meyer utilizes, we have a 33-foot overall mounting height to the actual fixture itself, once you include the pole height and the base of the light pole itself. With the new lights that Meyer uses, which is a downward shielded LED type fixture, we have a lot greater control of the optics. And actually, by going with a slightly taller pole height, we're able to reduce the number of poles in the parking field, kind of reduces the visual clutter, and it still allows for lighting control. It doesn't have the new fixtures with the LED lights in them don't have that same sort of glowing halo effect that the old shoebox style fixtures used to have. So really, we asked for that variance just to, again, try to reduce the visual clutter that's out there on the property while still maintaining the lighting levels and being able to control the cutoff and the zero lot spill over the property lines.
Yeah, we use a state-of-the-art lighting. We like energy efficiency. We like to try to be cognizant of our carbon footprint. And we like to, install 20 fixtures at 33 feet of height with a state-of-the-art illumination rather than 40, light poles at 20 feet, for example. We just think this LED, there's a lot of technology advancement in LED lighting and a lot of energy efficiency and a lot of control that you can put on these fixtures. Works better to have 19 or 20 fixtures as opposed to 40.
Absolutely. The next variance we're asking for is to allow a little longer run of parking aisle without landscaping. A couple of reasons why that we're asking for that is that we have we're kind of working on a balance here. We're trying to be consistent with what is going on in the remainder of the development, still maintaining landscaping in the parking field itself, and also trying to meet some of the parking number requirements that are out there. So we feel that the landscape islands that we've added, along with the landscaping that's presented in them, while not meeting exactly with the variance, with the code requirements, we think it's kind of in the spirit of the code to try to maintain the various aspects there.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add on to Brian's statements are, we found that from a safety factor, it's safer to have fewer interior islands for trip and fall. And it's safer for our snow plowers to be able to go through a parking lot and run long stretches of pushing snow and not be hitting islands and tearing up concrete and tearing up landscaping. We found it's safer for our customers. and it's better in winter conditions.
To add on to that, we have the next item that we're asking for is in regards to some signage to allow for internally illuminated projecting signs and for those to be mounted a little higher than code allows. Those signs are actually part of the latest and upgraded signage package that Meyer is putting out with their stores. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I mean, you can see that, like, for example, the pharmacy medallion there in the right-hand side of your picture. That internally illuminated medallion sign is a directional sign, which when you're out in the parking field directs folks towards the pharmacy area. For the drive-through pharmacy, it also directs you towards the online pickup area that is on the other end of the store. So obviously there are letters there that speak to the signage, but also these the symbology signs based on the new signage package. It helps to allow folks that may be a little bit more visually impaired or not fully understanding, what the letters might mean. It directs them to the end of the store where those services are provided. And there's two variances there in that the one is because they are internally illuminated, so that they can be seen, in darker conditions, and also that the mounting height itself just so happens that it's 20 feet to the top of the sign because of the facade itself. They're placed proportionally on the facade. So, but it does exceed your code, maximum height requirement.
I think you covered that one pretty well, Brian. Thank you.
No problem. And then the next variances we're asking for are in regards to it's kind of placed in our package here, but some overall sign variances for the heights and sizes of some of the joint development signs, and one sign in particular to Myers throughout the development. So a little bit odd. I mean, we're sort of asking for the variances, but this is really sort of the joint signs for the overall development. As you can see here on the screen, these apply to both not only Meyer but also Menards and the additional areas that the developer will retain in the potential outlot developments, etc. So again, there are a couple of these that we're asking for variances in height, and a couple that we're asking for in terms of overall size, and be happy to go through this package and answer any questions that anyone would have in regards to those.
I think, Brian, the only thing I'll point out is as you look at this, what Andrew has on the screen right now, you'll look at that top dimension of 40 inches, 3 feet, 4 inches. That is kind of a aesthetic. It makes the sign better to have a cap on the sign. But part of the reason we're higher than your ordinance allows is to accommodate that 40 inches and a decorative feature on the sign, which I think makes for a more attractive sign. Thank you. I think I'll add one more thing, and we took this is something we looked at as a team, and I mean that with Redstone and Menards, and we looked at really thinking about where our traffic is coming from. Burbank is probably the higher traffic volume road over Smithville Western. So we felt like the sign on Smithville, could be 20 feet. The sign on Burbank, since we're trying to pull customers north, we're trying to get people to go past Lowe's to go past Walmart, to come, we're a little somewhat more of a destination because of our location in this community. We felt like it was important that the sign on Burbank, be at 25 feet. Because we're pioneering this side of the market. We understand it's where your land development codes accommodate this large of a project, and your future land use maps also as well. But if it weren't for our teammates on here, it'd be a tough one to go it alone. So it's important that it works for us all. If that makes sense. I know I rambled a little bit there.
Now your argument makes sense. All right, and Andrew, I see that this also has the extension of the 1 year to 2 years for the zoning certificate.
Yes, that's correct. And again, the final development plan was approved by the Planning Commission, which was contingent on these variances, and also requested the 2 years to get a zoning certificate.
Yeah, it's a large project. We have it's hundreds of thousands of square feet, and we have not only city design criteria, we have county design criteria through stormwater management. We have state approval from Department of Transportation. So that just a coordination of those agency reviews, the large nature of the project, not to mention, the pandemic and the plays a somewhat of a role in the response time from different agencies. I'm not saying they're slow. I'm just saying it's another layer of complication as you go through this. If you've tried to renew your driver's license during this pandemic, you can understand how difficult things can be. Thank you.
All right, questions from members of the board?
I have some hesitation on item number 4, where you're asking for additional height on the street signs. And you really didn't give a compelling reasons, in my opinion, for granting the variance. In fact, you said you're looking for those signs, higher signs, so you can be more competitive with the other retail stores who have not been allowed that variance, to my knowledge. And unless you get a specific reasons with regards to the topography or sight lines, I struggle with that, just because it is an advantage for you compared to the other stores in the area, and it's a precedent that I don't really like setting.
Yeah, we're trying to maximize we're trying to minimize the number of signs, with being able to have them as a shopping center sign. I think the added 3 feet 4 inches, we could lop off that to shorten them.
Would that bring them within code?
No, it would not.
Not
The
quite.
maximum height is 15 feet. It would get the A would be pretty close. It'd be 16 feet 8 inches. But that was actually a conversation we had about that top feature, and I suggested leaving it in there. I agree. It's more attractive than if you would just chop that right off as a square box. But I suppose that's an opinion.
Andrew, what is the height for the rest of Burbank Road under the old code? 20 feet for all the signage that went in?
Yeah, I didn't look back on the old code. The current code is 15. I don't know what the old one was, and I didn't go,
Well, I believe it was 20. It was 20 feet, and they all adhered to that.
Okay.
At the time, and we've had You know, people in other locations want to get that. But when that whole development was put in, I know the Walmart and all the rest, the 20 feet was the top. And I sort of wonder, like Greg, okay, so what's the advantage here that this is a better shopping center, and so we should those signs should at night appear bigger, you know, and that's one of the concerns, along with the light fixtures being at 33 feet. Yeah, but somehow Menards got theirs to 25 feet, and that's, you know, what the current code is. So it's sort of like creep. You know, are we just going to keep letting things get a little taller, a little this? Not to say that this is not attractive and everything, but I'm concerned about precedent and how we have other people not wanting 30-foot signs.
Well, and as you know better than almost anybody can, we have fought the sign wars.
Yes.
Repeatedly.
Yes.
So we've got to be very careful with this one. And I think Greg asked the right question, is what's the unique circumstance here that would compel us to approve a variance? You know, we had one within the last couple of months that they made a very specific argument regarding sight lines that justified what they were trying to do.
Yes.
The other thing I might note in here is that in return for the height request, it looks like some of the area requests are actually less than what the code would allow. So there is a little bit of a trade-off going on here, I suspect. I mean, the Meyer store sign is proposed to be larger. The vacant retail signs are smaller. The fuel station's slightly larger, and the Menard sign is smaller. So that might be something. Maybe if we could, for the Myers folks, what would you think of complying with 20 feet to be consistent with what's along that corridor?
Mr. Chairman, I think that we would comply with that condition. I think I understand your argument for precedent, your argument for hardship. I think the project, although the signage height is important, I think at 20 feet, we'll have a successful project.
And just
I appreciate that your willingness to talk with us on that.
Yes, sir.
and a comment on the area, it's calculated by each individual lot's frontage. So there's bonuses when you have big, large lots, and that happens a lot here because Menards and Meyer both have very wide lots.
Mm-hmm.
So those, some of the lots are over. If you tally them all up, they're still under. If you took it all as one development, it would be under the area, the maximum area. That's just not how our code calculates it.
I understand communities fight the signage battle with retailers. And I myself would not want you guys to see retailers coming back to you and saying, well, we want 3 more feet because you gave it away here. Or we can live with 20 feet in height.
I think that will help us a great deal in this discussion.
we've used the 20-foot along Burbank for the new construction, like, as a reason why we don't grant it other places in the city, that
Right.
they could conform, and so we.
Yeah. And I'm only saying, that we have 2 feet that exceed your, I believe we have 2 signs that exceed.
2 signs, yeah,
Two
right.
signs that exceed your
That's
ordinance.
it, yeah.
And
That's
those signs will reduce in height.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
To
There are many
20.
communities that have 35 and 40-foot signs along their commercial strips, and it's really noticeable when you go to those communities.
Right.
They're junky.
I
mean,
agree
I'm
with you.
sorry about that. I mean,
Yeah.
Columbus, you've got all monument signs, and we haven't gone that route yet, but that's.
Yeah, and there was a comment made about the site signage, the site lighting and the height of our poles versus the height of Menards.
Yes.
And, we just believe the technology is such that fewer light poles at a higher height is beneficial and creates less and less lights from a long distance, less poles and less. We just think the technology is better than the policy. Your policy, and I'm not saying your policy is bad, but I just wonder if it's dated somewhat based on new technology.
Well, and that's a fair argument. The technology is advancing.
Yes.
I think the important comment that you made earlier is the ability of the new technology to comply with the full cutoff so that you're not bleeding light over your property line.
Correct.
I think you know as well as we do, that's the fastest way to get public blowback.
Yep.
Is
These
when you have
lights,
light bleeding.
these lights are considered zero lot line. They don't bleed. You can point them right where you want them to shine.
Yeah, and they're what our code calls full cutoff. There's no light going sideways from the light.
Correct.
Okay, other questions?
I also wanted to question item number 6 on the front page. Any other variances deemed necessary in connection? Are we writing a blank check there, or what's the intention of that?
And that has not been included in the final application or the analysis or the notice. So you're only considering those specific variances noted in the agenda and in the staff report.
Okay.
Yeah, and so there was no blank check in that reading. So I would strike number 6. And if there's anything else that is going to be required, they're going to have to come back. Am I correct in that, Andrew?
Yes, that's correct.
Other questions? Yeah, I think similar to the last one, given the volume here, what we'll do is we will open the public hearing and solicit the public comments, and then we'll come back to board questions after the public hearing is closed so that we try to be at least nominally a little more efficient with time. Andrew, so let's go ahead and declare the public hearing open on application BZA 21-13.
And once again, I haven't received any comments prior to now for this application. I haven't received any comments on YouTube.
All right, then we will close the public hearing portion for this application. Are there further questions from members of the board? Hearing no questions, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the variances as requested, with the exception on item number 4, that the signs would be limited to 20 feet in height. And also that item number 6 is struck from the list of approved variances.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Greg, and thank you, Ken. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-13, the specific items listed in the agenda, excepting the open-ended item 6 in the write-up and adding the condition of a 20-foot sign height. Greg?
I will vote yes to approve the variances requested. I think taken individually, they're all pretty reasonable. I'm kind of curious to see the lighting at 33 feet and if it's actually less light pollution and better illumination with fewer signs. It might be a way for us to go in the future with larger parking lots. And otherwise, I think the requests are reasonable and I appreciate the investment they're making in the community and working with us on the height of the signs.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm voting yes, in agreement with pretty much everything that Greg has said. I think they are reasonable requests, and I'm almost convinced that 33 feet is okay.
All right, thank you, Ken. Doug?
I'm going to vote yes. I agree completely with Greg's analysis, and we'll see on the 33 feet, but I'm okay with that new technology.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Ben?
As my colleagues have stated, they're all reasonable requests. If you look at them one by one, we've probably approved all of these or at some point, or you guys, the board as a whole. So I will approve as well.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Mark?
I will also vote to approve these variances contingent upon the 20-foot sign. I will say that I think that in the past, some of the issues we've had with lighting have been with lights that are not at 90 degrees, which leads to the lights bleeding past the lot lines. And even though these lights are higher, because of they're at 90 degrees and from the assurances by the applicant that, the lights aren't going to leave the lot lines, I don't see that as being a major issue that's going to cause any problems for the neighbors. And so for those reasons, I will vote to approve this.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I too will vote yes on this package of variances. I appreciate the willingness of Myers to work with us on the sign height. That has been a long-running community battle. So I appreciate your willingness to help us out in terms of promoting some consistency and fairness across our commercial community. As Greg said, we appreciate the big investment that's being made here. And as my colleagues have noted, taken individually, these are all very reasonable and minor sized requests. So with that, your package of variances is approved along with your 1-year extension. And just note that if any other variances are required, contrary to what the write-up said, you're going to have to come back and see us.
Understand. We didn't try to slip that in there.
Well, if nothing else, it shows you we read our stuff.
Thank you and have a good evening. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right, and last but not least, BZA 21-14. Roger Kowalarsek requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1123.05B6 regarding interior parking lot landscaping at 668 Venture Boulevard and parcel number 68379.08 in an I2 district.
And
Anyone to speak on behalf of this application?
And Roger was not able to be with us this evening, so I can substitute and go over the application best I can here. I suppose Andrew Dutton, 538 North Market Street, and I affirm to tell the truth. You'll see up here is the Clear Creek Park. It's located on the west side of Venture Boulevard, directly in front of the new tennis facility. Shown on this plan, there's the hatched area are wetlands. It's also predominantly wooded. The original plan was to place a number of structures and parking on the north end of the site that did not work out. They were relocated to the south. So as you can see there, we've got some walking trails basically throughout the southwest is kind of a little pavilion area at the end of that walking path there. But the green area is where there'll be a parking area, a pavilion, and restrooms, and that'll access Venture Boulevard at the southeast corner of the site. And it's, I think we might have lost Stuart again. Got Stuart back there.
Sorry, Andrew. My computer died again. I honestly don't know why it did this time. All right. So Roger isn't with us. You're presenting?
He is not, and I was just going over the site has woodlands and wetlands on it. Originally, we're going to have parking and structures on the north end. They were relocated to the southeast end. As you can see here, the drive's kind of snaked. That's to avoid wooded areas and wetlands. So the parking area does not comply with our parking requirements, which would require 3 interior trees. It exceeds the aisle length at 270 feet and needs 270 square feet of interior landscaping and has aisles of 126 feet. So it exceeds the aisle length by 26 feet and doesn't have any interior landscaping. And the reason for this is the site is very constricted with woodlands and wetlands, and the idea was to pack as much parking into one spot as possible. Obviously, there's substantial landscaping all throughout this site, so having 2 islands to break it up doesn't seem to be a major concern. And we want to try to pose as little impact on the natural areas as possible. And I guess that's all I have, and I'll take any questions you have regarding the application.
Yeah, I mean, it seems a very reasonable argument to not disturb more of a park just to put more landscaping in a parking lot. And gee, didn't we just approve 2 parking lot variances?
Yes.
There'll also be a playground there. It's that kind of oddly shaped area.
All right. Questions from members of the board?
We get overtime?
Yeah.
It's double pay.
Yeah, I think that's any multiple of your salary that you want, Greg.
So this is walking trails. What kind of, this is not necessarily under what we're covering, but what's the walking trails? There's 11 acres. It's just,
Yeah, basically the whole site is, back to that. I know it's a little bit chopped up, taking out the structures, but yeah, basically all the gray areas are walking trails kind of going through the woods.
Okay.
And there's an area where they cross the wetlands, and there's kind of extraordinary measures that engineering had to come up with to get across there, not disturb the wetlands. I think there's buoys or something involved in that crossing there. So basically it was configured to have as little impact as possible. And then it kind of ties in with the tennis facility there as well.
yeah. Nice.
Under the heading of we're very fortunate to have had the donation to the city. It's another great improvement. Other questions from members of the board? All right, Andrew, let's go ahead and open this to a public hearing for BZA 21-14.
And once again, I have not received any comments for this application prior to the meeting.
This is getting to be like the bad old days of 3-hour meetings.
So it doesn't look like we're getting any comments on YouTube.
All right, then let's close the public hearing portion of the meeting for this application. Any further questions from members of the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-14. Ken?
I vote yes. Somebody already said it. Why would we tear down more trees in a park just to fulfill the requirement? It's very reasonable.
Yep. All right, thank you, Ken. Greg?
I'd also vote yes for the same reason. It's just, let's preserve the parkland as much as possible while having a necessary amount of parking.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Mark?
I'll also vote yes for the reasons stated by my colleagues.
Okay. Ben?
I will also vote yes for the reasons stated by my colleagues.
Thank you, Ben. Doug?
And I vote yes. You know, the least amount of impact on the natural area is always good. So I vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. And I too vote yes for all the reasons stated by my colleagues. I think I was the person who said, why on earth would you tear down park trees to put trees in a parking lot? So I think this is very well justified. So Andrew, you can tell Roger his variance request is approved.
All right, we'll do.
All right, is there anything else to come before this august board?
I appreciate the long, long meeting, but it seems like we have a lot of pent up development that all kind of came through in the past few months. The planning commission had a full agenda, so the design review board. So a lot of things happening, which is a good thing.
That is a good thing. And we should feel fortunate as a community that we're getting all this investment. So thank you all. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ben. Is
I'll
there a
second
second? Thank you, Doug. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed, say no and run for your life.
It's
All
not
right.
10 o'clock yet. We got 2
We-
minutes.
We are adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.